Okay, hello, hello. I wanted to just say happy holidays to everyone that is celebrating. It is, feel like right smack in the middle of like snowstorms and cold, cozy times and spending time with family and just really embracing this time right now. And we're obviously, so today is Monday, December 26th, and we are in the last stretch of the year. How did 2022 fly by? Like, this is so wild. So, I wanted this episode to be basically like a no BS big permission slip on just how to navigate the holidays, how to navigate resolutions and new goals and like moving into the new year and releasing some shit. So I really just wanted to share a few tidbits. I don't know. I feel like I don't know how many are going to come out in this episode. So I'll count them as I go. So, really, I wanted to start with number one being you get to do whatever the heck you want to do when it comes to goals. And yeah, I know that sounds very like simple and like, yeah, duh, Sonia. But I also just want to bring it to this lens of like, we get so fixated on like New Year's resolutions or, oh, it's a new year and I have to pick all of these goals. And sometimes we fixate on focusing on goals in every life domain and it essentially can just get overwhelming. And, that fresh start feeling is truly an effect that it can be supportive of starting a brand new year and that fresh start. Like that is a motivating thing. But at the same time, I also just want to say, like, dropping the BS with it too, and just being like, just pick whatever you want to work on. And you don't need to overwhelm yourself because Sally is doing all these big goals and this other person is doing this big vision board and everyone is talking about doing these big goals and these big things. And I just wanted to say, like, you know it can be a lot to be like, okay, I'm going to sit down and pick all of these big goals for the next year. And there's just a part of me where I'm like, honestly, for me personally, my one main big goal, or just one goal that I'm focusing on, is my health next year. And I'm not even really wanting to break that down into like specific steps and specific strategies. And it's just like overall, like it's my well being and my health. And And I know as a mindset and behavior change coach, that's kind of like, okay, well, that's pretty broad, but like knowing how I operate and how I'm designed, I know that giving myself that space to just focus on essentially a value rather than a specific goal is really supportive for me. So I almost just wanted to give that lens to you to say, like, there's no BS. Like, you can literally choose what you desire, even if it is an overarching value and you have like multiple habits within that. But overall, there is a key domain or there is a key goal or there's a key value that you want to focus on. So I also just want to say that as like number one, you get to choose whatever the heck you want to focus on. And it doesn't need to be this big, overwhelming thing and needing to pick all of these big things. Like, my biggest priority next year is health. And, you know, it's allowing me to really think about what does that mean for the life that I want to move into. And I'm really looking at it from the lens of that as a value and like, who do I want to show up as? And that's going to look different. And so, yes, I write those things down and I allow myself to tap into that. But overall, I'm really focusing on my health. And so I just wanted to give that tidbit to any of you that are like, you're feeling overwhelmed with like choosing a ton of goals or thinking that you need to have this like new year, new you. This actually will tie into my second point here is like, you don't even need to pick a goal. You don't even need to do the whole new year, new me thing. If you're content, if you are currently going through a goal that like you're still working on, like just because it's a new year and fresh start doesn't mean you have to choose something either. So on the flip side of my number one of like picking, one or two things that you really want to focus on, you can also choose not to pick anything at all. A lot of us are, there can be so many moments where we're like, okay, this is what I am leaning into. And at the same time, going into a new year where we're on our own journeys. And for instance, like I've been navigating like this past year, the word of the year for me was embodiment. And I'm still very much on that journey. And when I think about health being my main priority, that is a version of embodiment. So it's like for me, I am basically continuing my goal from this year into next year. And I also just feel like it's a time to be like, you know, you don't have to change. Like you don't need to pick a goal because you feel like you should or you feel like everybody else is doing it. Like really tapping into the intention behind them and really giving yourself that space to get curious and question it and be like, where is this coming from? Is this coming from the place of desire where I want to move towards something? Or is it coming more from a place of like fear or even that like missing out feeling like everyone else is doing it. So like I should do it too. And if you are in a space where you're content, literally as you are, like I think that's also something that is very underrated is like actually being content with like your current self and who you are today. That's beautiful. Like so that's why my number 2 is also saying like you don't need to have a change goal. And I know that also sounds ironic coming from a behavior change coach, but I feel like there is this big lens in the self-development world and healing world is that like we need to be evolving and growing and doing things and expanding. And like, yes, if that's something you desire, go for it. But at the same time, we can also be in a season of planting those seeds and being in the slow season of just moving at our own pace and not needing to jump the gun or add things to our plate. Like if you are truly content with what you are doing in life and where you're at, that's freaking amazing. So my point 2 is you don't even need to choose something at all. And I guess this ties into number 3 is you get to choose when you want to make changes. And I know the fresh start feel can be very supportive and helpful for some, but at the same time, it can also be a crutch. So being mindful of that to say like, oh, I won't start working out until after the holidays. I won't start doing that thing until the new year. I won't start eating healthy until I'm back at work in 2 weeks. I won't start, getting into that morning habit until my schedule changes for work. Like those are excuses. Those are things that are delaying or standing in the way of like what you truly want. So number 3 here is really just allowing yourself to catch and notice how much meaning you are placing on a new year, the holidays, setting goals, and getting yourself into that headspace of it's not about the circumstances, it's about who you be in those circumstances. So like thinking about holidays and resolutions and goals is a perfect example of that. Is like, are you telling yourself that you can't start your workout routine because of the holidays? Are you telling yourself that you don't need to think about eating healthy because you're going home and going to eat all the things? And that's the thing. If that comes from a place of love and you're just really content to go into that and you know that you're going to pick it right back up, like, to each your own, right? Like, this is all like trusting yourself and tapping into your intuition to know where it's really coming from. So something I actually work through with one of my clients in relation to circumstances is thinking about like, when it comes to a circumstance, like, are you letting that circumstance dictate the actions that you take always? So if you're like, oh, I worked late today, so I can't go to the gym, or oh, the weather's really bad, so I can't make it to that dinner, or oh, my baby was up all night, so like there's no way I can do anything for myself today. Like, if you are making decisions based on your circumstances, it's going to be a lot more challenging to grow, to learn, to step into a stronger foundation of trust with yourselves, because what you're doing is you're giving your power away and you are allowing all of your circumstances to dictate what behaviors you engage in. So, my third point here is, if you are wanting to make goals, notice what you're telling yourself when it comes to starting those goals. And I say this is like a no BS episode because it's really like no BS, like no bullshitting yourself. Like, really allow yourself to notice what thoughts are dictating those feelings, which then lead to the actions you take and the results that you get. It all starts from your mind and the thoughts and beliefs that you have about those circumstances. And I have one of my mentors, and she really talks a lot about how she makes choices to create her own results non-circumstantially. And this is something that like really stuck with me because it just blew my mind because I was like, it's so true. We're in this society where we are basically we we tend to naturally, like instinctively, make decisions based on the circumstances around us, which is totally fair. That's like such an automatic response. So one, I'm not saying this to like make you look at yourself and get upset at yourself that you have these excuses. This is really just an awareness piece to be like, where am I creating these scenarios around my circumstances? And this is really where we can give away our power. And that creates this turmoil and this blame within ourselves of like, oh, well, because that happened, then I can't do this. And when we live in that cycle, we're not going to step out of the box. We're not going to be able to face our fears. We're not going to be able to make the changes that we desire because we're putting the power literally in the environment, in external things outside of us. When we can take our power back and say, regardless of my circumstances, I get to make a choice in this moment. So that could be like, if I'm wanting to start a workout routine just because it's the holidays, why does that have to dictate if I start now or not? And once again, I'm not saying like jump 2 feet into the deep end and like go hard and like do the biggest things. Like, I'm all about baby steps too, but I'm just wanting to have this conversation because in the society that we live in, we create so much meaning and turmoil around what is happening in our circumstances around us. And we get to choose to see that differently. We get to make a different decision if we want to. So I wanted to say that in the sense of, if you are coming from a place of, I can't do something because of XYZ, you're creating a rule on yourself that doesn't need to be there. And we get to live a fulfilling, rich, and meaningful life. Like, we are worthy and deserving of that right now, regardless of what our circumstances are. And that is really where I'm personally wanting to step into more of, is like, I've realized in the past few weeks, I've had a lot of resistance. I've had a lot of like mental battles and trying to navigate things. And I'm realizing there's a lot more excuses coming up for myself. And so it's me taking that ownership. Can I own the fact that like I'm creating these things, I'm placing meaning on things that I don't have to, right? Like, if there's a certain circumstance and I'm saying like, oh, I can't really do this because of that, and then I make it mean something about me, because then it leads into, okay, oh, I can't work out because of the holidays. Then I don't work out and I don't feel good about myself. And then I create this turmoil in my head, and then go down that path of beating myself up, and I'm not feeling healthy, and, oh, I'm not really taking the action. And then we fall into that trap. And it's like, that's adding these layers of pressure on our shoulders because we have put meaning on that. We have created this meaning on this behavior of ours to be like, oh, like, I can't believe I decided that. I feel really crappy about myself, or I can't believe I still haven't made that decision. Or, it's really about noticing how we respond in those moments as well. There's a whole concept, right? Like, noticing what thoughts lead to those actions, but then how do you respond to that moment after you engage in that behavior? Like, do you beat yourself up? Do you allow yourself space to get curious without judgment and like challenge it? Or are you just feeling completely overwhelmed and you dwell on it? And so it's really being calculated of, one, there's a proactive piece of being like, how can I catch this and notice this proactively and know like this is going to happen and I can anticipate it based on, oh, the holidays are coming up. How can I support myself, even if it is in the smallest way? Maybe instead of doing workouts, I do like a 10-15 minute walk. And maybe I ask my mom to join me to go for a walk around the block because she has a dog. And I ask, can I come? And that's the movement I have. Like, there are ways around it. Like, we can proactively set ourselves up for success when it comes to our circumstances and our environments that we walk into. But then on the flip side, the reactive piece is like the management of our behavior afterwards, of like, okay, so I just realized, I have been resistant. I have been making excuses. That's where the ownership and radical responsibility comes in. And it's like, what do you do in that moment? How do you manage it in that moment after you've done a behavior you're maybe not the most proud of? Like, how do you allow yourself to navigate it? Do you look at it from a lens of like, I did something wrong or I should have done it different? Or do you come at it from a lens of, I take ownership for that, and I can't control control or change the past, but I can control how I respond to this going forward and what my next step is. So that third one was very long. But I feel like that's kind of the general point of this episode, which is a bit of like a tough love of just releasing a lot of these shoulds and these expectations. And if you don't desire to make changes, like, and you're feeling really content and you've got a good flow, keep at it. If you want to be able to just pick one tiny thing to focus on and keep it super simple for yourself and then reassess in a few months' time, cool, you do you. Like, I feel like there can be a lot of pressure around this time. And I just want to say, whatever is on your heart, whether that's creating a goal or not, or whether that's just enjoying your holidays, enjoying your own time, and giving yourself that timeline to be like, I have, this week off and I am going to be flexible with what I choose for myself, and that's okay. And when I come back home, I'm going to do the certain things for myself or help yourself navigate different circumstances and set yourself up for success and see what excuses you are placing on yourself in certain moments. Like it really is allowing yourself to acknowledge what thoughts and feelings occur in those moments. Am I feeling a lot more judgmental towards myself, or am I content and supportive when it comes to these moments? So that is what I have for you today. I am really navigating this myself, and I just wanted to share this little tidbit as just like, no BS. You get to do whatever your heart desires, and also catch yourself when your brain might be sneaky, trying to say things or create certain meaning on things or giving yourself excuses if it doesn't feel good. So it could honestly go either way. Like, I feel like it's always individualized. Like everyone's in their own seasons right now. Everyone's navigating holidays in their own way. Like every time of year at this time, like we all are going through different seasons based on anything really. So I just wanted to share this as a big overhaul to be like, you can scrap things. Like you can let things go. You can drop the perfection. You can drop those shoulds. You can take bigger actions and take more ownership of what you want for your life. And you can speak up on that. And I believe in you, and you are worthy and deserving of like whatever is on your heart now. And whatever path that takes you down is exactly where you're meant to go. And I think allowing yourself to trust in yourself in that path. And so I hope this was helpful, this little pep talk, a little tough love pep talk. I hope you guys enjoy your holidays and you really just allow yourself to enjoy it. Lean into what feels fun and good for you. And I will see you guys in the new year. Okay. Bye, guys.